Hi there. So I am so excited about It's About Time, and in the book I talk about doing your time chart. In fact, I talk about it at the very beginning because a time chart is something that my husband came up with. It was actually one of our very first experiments because he was trying to figure out how he was spending his time, and it was very, very eye-opening. And so I'm going to show you how to create your own time chart. The time chart's actually in the book. You can also download it from the website. If you go to valerieburton.com/itsabouttime, we have all of our resources there, our assessments, and this time chart if you want to do it online or you want to download a PDF of the time chart. Now, it's a very simple thing to do, and this is why I'm creating the video, because whether you are doing this for yourself, which I recommend everyone do, or you're helping someone else through it, you might be coaching someone else through the process, understanding where your time is going and how it adds up is a powerful tool for two things. Number one, realizing you need to do something about how you're spending your time and making sure you're spending it doing what is meaningful and not just what ends up being urgent or the things that you've always done that you don't necessarily still need to be doing. And then it's also important for figuring out where you could make shifts and changes. So when Jeff did his time chart, we were really blown away. In fact, we were a little bit disturbed because being that my husband is a pilot, when we did his time chart, we figured out he was spending 347 hours a month working. Now your average 30-day month is 720 hours. That meant that he was spending 47% of his time in his life working. And then the other thing we figured out that was really interesting is because we share the girls, we share custody, and they're with us almost 2 weeks a month, and so they go to school 30 minutes away, he was spending between 3.5 and 4 hours a day taking them to school, going and coming back, and then picking them up, and they were let out an hour apart because they were two different schools. So we realized, gosh, when he had all of his time chart put together, he had about 20% of his time left for everything else in his life. So between working, taking the girls to and from school and extracurricular activities, sleeping and eating, we had all of those just basic things. He had about 20% of his time left per month for spending time with me and the kids, for working out, for having a hobby, for doing anything else that, really was meaningful. And that became a starting point for us in looking at ways to change our goals around time in our lives, and also looking at what we could change. So I give an example in the book of someone named Jamie, who we talk about her story in the book. Jamie has a lot of guilt around her social media use. So this is a completed daily time chart. Now, in the book, you have a daily time chart, a weekly time chart, and a monthly time chart. And the reason is that obviously there are some things you do weekly that you wouldn't put on a daily time chart. And there are also some things you might do monthly. The monthly time chart gives you an opportunity to add up all the time you're spending. So the time chart has a couple of functions. One is that you can see where you are spending your time. For example, we see that obviously the most time that Jamie is spending is 8 hours working, 7 hours sleeping. We see working is 33% of her day on most days, and 29% of her day is sleeping. But it's not just about what you're spending your time doing, it's also about what you're not spending time doing. And so in this case, the one that hit her the most was exercising. 0 hours, minutes spent exercising. That gave her an idea of something she definitely wanted to be able to change. Problem is, when we added up all the hours that she's spending, we get to the bottom and it's 23.8 hours. So she had 0.2 hours left in her day. So how would she then begin finding the time to exercise? Having all these categories here gives you a chance to say, what am I doing that I could do less of, that I could perhaps begin to find the time to do what's really important. This is huge. So while you may have a few categories you even want to add, maybe there's some things you do that just aren't that common, they aren't on the time chart, great, add those in. For many people, when they get to add up all the hours, they find that their estimates show that maybe they are spending 26 hours a day doing something. So you're actually overtime, and it's not that you're actually spending 26 hours, it's that this is your perception of how much time you're spending, which means you want to get more accurate about it. But the other piece that is important is that as you go to the weekly and the monthly time chart, you can see the totality of what's happening. For example, if social media for you is taking up what the average person spends, which is almost an hour a day, then you'll realize that on a weekly basis, you're spending 7 hours on social media. On a monthly basis, that means you're spending 30 hours on social media. You can see how someone that's spending that amount of time on social media, which again is the average, so this isn't something ridiculous today, that if you just cut that in half, you would actually have some time to exercise, right? So the time chart just helps you to see how you're spending your time. It helps you to face the reality of the total number of hours per month, but that starts with the daily time chart. And from there, you can begin your time budget. I walk you through all of that in the final chapter of the book, but the time chart is in the very beginning. And I ask you to do it in the beginning because I want you to immediately see where is your time going so that you can start thinking about the kinds of changes that you want to make. This literally will take you a few minutes, and I encourage you to take the time to do it because it is eye-opening and it will help you to set some really strong goals around how you might make some really meaningful changes with your time.